The waiter laughed, the manager ignored him, and the customers whispered behind his back. But no one knew he wasn't just a random man. He was Keanu Reeves. What happened next? It shocked the entire staff and changed one man's life forever. Direct hits stick around, because this isn't just a story about a celebrity. It's a story about ego, humility, and second chances. It was just another evening at La Reverie, New York City's crown jewel of fine dining. The chandeliers glowed like captured stars, casting soft golden light across velvet-lined booths and gleaming crystal glasses. Each table was adorned with polished silverware and fresh white orchids, arranged with the kind of precision that screamed luxury. A soft symphony played through the hidden speakers, wrapping the space in elegance. As the clock neared 7 p.m., the Friday dinner crowd began arriving. Wall Street elites in designer suits, socialites draped in diamonds, and food critics who spoke in whispers but judged with thunder. At the front, the hostess stood behind a marble podium, greeting each guest with the kind of poised charm that only came from years of practice. Then the door opened again. In stepped a man who didn't quite fit the scene. He wore a simple black hoodie, faded jeans, and well-worn boots. His long dark hair was tied loosely at the back, and he carried no reservation card, no assistant, and no air of entitlement. For a split second, the elegant rhythm of the room paused. A few guests glanced his way, eyebrows raised. The hostess took a breath to greet him. But before she could speak, Daniel, a senior waiter known for his efficiency and pride, stepped forward with a tight smile. He glanced at the man, subtly scanning him from head to toe, then leaned toward the hostess and whispered just loud enough to be heard. "Looks like someone took a wrong turn. Maybe he's looking for the burger joint down the street." The hostess hesitated, unsure. The man, however, remained calm. He offered a warm smile and spoke with gentle confidence. "Good evening. I was hoping for a quiet dinner, alone, maybe by the window?" Daniel's smile faltered, but only for a second. "Of course, sir. Right this way," he said. But the sarcasm was barely hidden. He led the man to the far end of the room, close to the window but far from the spotlight, as if trying to keep him out of view. No water was served. No menu was brought. Daniel returned only after several minutes, holding himself like he had more important things to do. The man looked up again, still polite. "Could you tell me what the specials are tonight?" Daniel exhaled sharply, clearly annoyed. "Sir, just so you know, our prices start at $150 per dish. That's before wine, dessert, or anything else. Just wanted to make sure you're in the right place." There it was. The assumption. The judgment. All wrapped in one smug sentence. The man chuckled softly, showing no offense. His voice was calm, measured. "I think I'll try the chef's tasting menu. And your finest red wine, please." Daniel blinked, confused. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. But he quickly covered it with a scoff and turned away, muttering under his breath, "Watched too many movies, this one." As he walked off, some guests nearby began whispering. A few glanced at the man with amusement, others with curiosity. But none of them, not even Daniel, knew who was sitting at that window. Not yet. Despite the cold treatment, the man at the window didn't seem angry. He simply gazed outside, watching the evening traffic crawl by through rain-speckled glass. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with polished perfection. Waiters moving like clockwork, diners whispering reviews of caviar and imported truffle dishes. Daniel returned, finally setting down a wineglass with visible reluctance. "Here," he said, pouring the red wine without even naming it. "No menu still?" the man asked kindly. Daniel shrugged. "I figured someone like you might not want to waste time reading the prices." There was no malice in the man's response. Just calmness. "I trust the chef. Whatever he thinks is best." A couple at a nearby table noticed the conversation and exchanged looks. The man in the hoodie had drawn subtle attention now. His calm, centered energy felt unusual. It didn't match someone trying to fake their way into a luxury restaurant. In fact, it unsettled Daniel more than he cared to admit. The room continued to hum with elegant chatter. Until Olivia, the restaurant's general manager, entered from the kitchen. She was sharp, confident, and known for running La Reverie with the grace of a symphony conductor. She was walking the floor to greet VIPs, not expecting anything unusual. But the moment her eyes fell on the man seated by the window, she stopped. Dead in her tracks. Her professional smile faltered. Her face drained of color. She blinked once, twice. As if trying to process what she was seeing. Without a word, she beelined across the room, ignoring the waitstaff and startled customers. She stopped beside the man's table, her voice trembling. "Mr. Reeves? I didn't realize you'd be dining with us tonight." The entire restaurant seemed to fall silent in a single heartbeat. A spoon clinked to the floor. Someone audibly gasped. Heads turned like dominoes falling in sequence. Daniel froze mid-step, holding a basket of bread. "Mr. Reeves," he echoed, as if trying to convince himself he had heard wrong. The man, calm as ever, looked up at Olivia and smiled warmly. "I didn't want to cause a stir. Just needed a quiet evening." That voice. That unmistakable voice. It sent ripples through the room. Now every guest knew. The man in the hoodie wasn't just anyone. He was Keanu Reeves. The Hollywood legend. Philanthropist. An icon of humility. Daniel's hands trembled. The bread basket slipped from his grip, scattering warm rolls across the polished floor. A hush blanketed the space. Olivia turned to Daniel, her voice now cold and firm. "My office. Now." She didn't yell, she didn't need to. Her tone carried finality. Judgment. Disappointment. Daniel looked at Keanu once more, as if hoping this was all a prank. But Keanu said nothing. He simply picked up his wineglass and took a sip. The quiet dignity of his presence, speaking louder than any insult ever could. It wasn't just a moment of truth. It was the beginning of consequences. The silence between the two men hung in the air for a long moment. Daniel sat across from Keanu, his hands clasped tightly, his eyes fixed on the table, as if looking at the man in front of him was too heavy a burden to bear. But Keanu wasn't frowning. He wasn't angry. He was calm. The same calmness that had unsettled Daniel the first time they met. Only now, it didn't feel mysterious. It felt comforting. Finally, Keanu leaned forward. "You know," he said softly, "most people in your position would have just kept walking. Pretended they never saw me. You didn't." Daniel looked up, surprised. "I couldn't. I needed to face it." Keanu nodded, his fingers tapping gently on the table. "We all mess up, Daniel. The question is, what do we do afterward?" He let that sink in. Then added, "I've been thinking about hiring a new manager here. Someone who knows what it feels like to be on both sides of a table." Daniel's breath caught. "Me?" he asked, stunned. "After everything I did, you'd trust me to run your restaurant?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Only if you've truly learned from it. This place," he said, gesturing around the warm, homey interior, "isn't about fancy wine or 10-course meals. It's about people. And everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Whether they walk in wearing a Rolex or a rain-soaked hoodie." Daniel's eyes began to mist. "I swear, I'd never make that mistake again." Keanu reached across the table and offered his hand. "Then you're hired." It was more than a job offer. It was a moment of grace. The kind that doesn't just change careers, but changes people. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Daniel had expected. He started small, learning how Solace ran, from the suppliers to the soup. It wasn't about impressing celebrities or chasing Michelin stars. It was about service, connection, and heart. He trained the staff, not just in etiquette, but in empathy. He made it a point to greet every guest personally, from the wealthy tech couple to the construction worker coming in after a long shift. The staff noticed, the customers felt it, and the restaurant bloomed. Keanu didn't micromanage. He dropped in occasionally, sometimes to eat, sometimes to help in the kitchen. Always humble. He never acted like a boss, more like a guardian of something meaningful. One evening, Daniel stood by the door, watching a family laugh over their meal. The father wore a wrinkled jacket. The daughter had shoes 2 sizes too big. But their joy lit up the room. Daniel smiled. He understood now. The restaurant wasn't just a place to eat. It was a second chance. For the guests. And for him. Daniel sat in Olivia's office like a schoolboy called to the principal. The contrast between the elegant restaurant floor and this cold, glass-walled office was stark. Outside, the staff moved in near silence. Inside, only the faint hum of air conditioning filled the tension. Olivia stood across from him, arms folded, eyes sharp. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. Her silence carried the weight of the moment. Finally, she spoke. "Do you even realize what you've done?" Daniel looked down. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He couldn't find a way to explain the assumptions. The sarcasm, the arrogance, all played out in front of a man who had done nothing but smile. Olivia walked to her desk and pulled out a folder. This restaurant, she began, was built on one principle: respect. For food. For people. For the experience. It doesn't matter if a guest walks in wearing Armani or Goodwill. They are treated the same. She let the words settle before continuing. And tonight, you didn't just disrespect a guest. You disrespected Keanu Reeves. A man who could buy this building if he wanted to. But he walked in here dressed like an average guy. And you mocked him for it. Daniel's heart sank. His voice barely a whisper now. I didn't know. I didn't mean. Olivia cut him off. That's the point. You didn't know. And you didn't care. You judged him by his clothes. His silence. You served your ego, not the guest. The words stung because they were true. Daniel wasn't a bad person. But somewhere along the line, he had let his pride twist into superiority. And now, it was costing him everything. Within the hour, he was packing his things. No dramatic scene. No pleading. Just quiet humiliation. As he stepped through the dining room for the last time, he kept his eyes low. Until he felt a presence. He looked up. Keanu Reeves was still there, calmly enjoying his meal. The restaurant had returned to its rhythm. But the energy had changed. It felt softer. A bit more human. Keanu looked at Daniel. Not with anger, but with something far worse. Disappointment laced with understanding. Like he had seen this before. And hoped for better. Daniel paused, struggling to speak. But Keanu just gave a gentle nod. Then returned to his wine. There was no smirk. No revenge. No satisfaction. Just grace. That moment. That look of quiet forgiveness without words. Would haunt Daniel more than the firing ever could. It was a hard lesson. Respect isn't about who someone appears to be. It's about who they are. And how you treat them. Especially when you think no one's watching. And in a room full of suits. Glitz. And ego. The man in the hoodie had carried the most class of all. Weeks had passed since that humiliating night at La Reverie. And for Daniel, each day had felt longer than the last. At first, he tried to pretend it was just a temporary setback. He updated his resume, polished his shoes, and started calling old colleagues. But hospitality is a small world. And gossip travels fast. Especially when a high-end waiter disrespects a global icon like Keanu Reeves. Word had spread like wildfire. Some managers chuckled awkwardly over the phone. Others were blunt. We're looking for someone with stronger judgment. We can't risk upsetting our VIPs. Even a modest French bistro in Midtown told him. We're fully staffed. The rejection wasn't just professional. It was personal. Every door that closed reminded him of how badly he had misjudged that quiet man by the window. And how costly that moment of arrogance had become. Rent was due. Bills were piling up. And Daniel, once confident, smooth, and in control, was now humbler than he'd ever been. The pride he used to wear like armor had slowly peeled away. leaving only regret and a gnawing need to make things right. One rainy afternoon, with no job interviews and nowhere else to go, Daniel wandered through Brooklyn. The city felt different now. Less exciting, more honest. The rain tapped softly against his jacket as he walked aimlessly, unsure of what he was even looking for. Then, something caught his eye. A small restaurant, tucked between a bookstore and a barber shop. No neon signs. No valet. Just a wooden door. And a simple hand-painted name above it. Solace. Something about it pulled him in. The smell of fresh rosemary and garlic drifted from the kitchen. Warm yellow lights glowed through the window. It felt nothing like La Reverie. It felt real. Inside, the restaurant was cozy, with mismatched chairs and smiling staff. The energy was gentle, welcoming. Daniel hesitated at the door, not intending to ask for work, just drawn by curiosity. And maybe hunger. That's when he saw him. In the far corner, wearing the same black hoodie, sat Keanu Reeves. Not as a guest this time, but as if he belonged there. A stack of papers sat on the table next to a half-eaten sandwich. A cook walked by and gave him a playful nod. Keanu looked up, and their eyes met. Daniel froze. Part of him wanted to turn and walk out, but he didn't. He stepped inside, nervously approaching the table. Keanu offered a nod and gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit," he said gently. Daniel sat slowly, overwhelmed by emotion. I wanted to say I'm sorry," he began. "Not because of who you are, but because of how I treated someone who did nothing wrong. I let ego get in the way of decency. And I hate that I became that kind of person." Keanu said nothing at first. He just listened. Really listened. And somehow, Daniel knew this wasn't the end. This might be a beginning. Sometimes, the people we underestimate the most are the ones who carry the greatest strength. And sometimes, the worst mistake we make can lead to the best version of ourselves. Daniel's journey wasn't just about losing a job. It was about learning to lead with humility. And Keanu Reeves? He reminded us all of something we too often forget. That real power doesn't come from fame, money, or titles. It comes from kindness, from giving second chances, and from listening when no one else would. In a world full of quick judgments, this story is your reminder. Never judge a book by its cover, because the quietest person in the room just might be the one who changes your life.